All right, how's it going, everybody? Most of you have seen some of my sourdough pictures on Instagram and Facebook, and I've had enough interest that since we are all quarantined at home for the next indefinite amount of time, there's no reason why we can't all make it. So, starting from all the way scratch, I'm gonna do daily videos from nothing until baking. Make sense? I've got my helpers here. Jesse, we showed these people. There's Jake. There's Carol. And you. Awesome. Okay, the first step, and I'm gonna post a bunch of links to a bunch of written stuff and recipes in the below, I don't know, somewhere. But first we have to make the starter. Sourdough starter is used instead of yeast, and it is literally nothing but flour and water. And it's 7 days of flour and water fermentation. So day one is 50 grams of flour and 50 grams of warm water. And that's it. That's all we're gonna do today. But 7 days from now, or maybe 8 days from now, you're gonna want a couple things. So this gives you a chance to order some stuff on Amazon. For example, I bake my sourdough in a Dutch oven. Super awesome. You definitely want one, and they're not very expensive. Okay? The other thing that you need is a little scale, because there's lots of weighing. There's a chart of grams to cups, but it's a pain. I'll post it just in case. But a little scale like this would be super helpful. Okay? I really like having parchment paper for the baking. It's not critical, but it would be helpful. So these little individual sheets of parchment paper are super handy. I think you can get them pretty much anywhere. That's the list. Today, let's see, what are we doing now? Okay, today we are going to, what?
What are the apples for?
I'll tell you what the apples are for. When you mix the flour and water over time in warm-ish room temperature, they get bacteria out of the air and they ferment. Putting them near fresh fruit is a great way to make extra sure that that happens, because fresh fruit has natural yeast on it. Does that make sense? So Jake and I think our first starter took 10 days to naturally ferment, and I'm hoping that this one is a little bit faster by leaving it at room temperature and keeping it next to these good looking apples, if Jesse doesn't eat them all. Okay, and here's a spoiler. Check this out, Jesse. This is my starter. This starter, oh my goodness, look at that. How awesome is that? This starter it will be a year old on Jake's birthday, so July 28th. So it's 9 months old, however old that is. This is what I use every single week for my sourdough, and I'm just showing you what good starter will look like once we've got to the 7-day mark. Okay? So, here's all we're gonna do today. Some sort of a container, scale, and we're gonna measure.
Any kind of flour is good for this?
Great question. I'm so glad you asked that question. I use bread flour. This says white flour because all of the stores are out of bread flour. So we're out of bread flour. The only difference that I know of is that bread flour has a lot more protein, which is awesome. And I think it actually makes better starter because of the protein. So we'll find out. But all the stores are out of bread flour right now. The last batch I did, I added some natural home ground wheat, but we're just going to use regular white or all-purpose flour. If you have bread flour, awesome, but I don't think it's a deal breaker. Okay? So, here we go, Jess. Can you see this scale? Uh-oh, 53, that's not gonna work.
So the more exact, the better.
I mean, no, it's fine. But what is important is that you use the exact same amount of water. So whatever this flour is, the water should be. So now we're gonna do pretty much warm, like not too hot to touch, but warmer than room temperature water. I'm not too worried about it. 90 degrees maybe, close enough. So this should add up to 100. Close enough. Okay, 105. Then stir it up just a little bit.
And it'll expand to that much over
Nope,
here?
that's a good question also. That's 600 grams, so that's 7 days worth. And I'm gonna post this chart if you wanna read ahead, but you have to wait these amounts of times. So each day, for the first few days, we're gonna add, and then we start subtracting. So we'll get there, but I want people to be hooked so they can't read ahead yet. But over time, the goal is to have, so with 600 grams of starter, we take each week when we bake sourdough, we take 200 out to save as starter. And I add 200 grams of water and 200 grams of flour to that, which equals 600 grams. And that goes back in the fridge for a week. The remainder is what goes into bake the bread. Make sense? Okay, so here we go. 50 grams of flour and 50 grams of water. And 24 hours from now, we'll see what it looks like. And we will add 50 more grams of flour and 50 more grams of water. That's literally all for tomorrow. So tomorrow's video is going to be super boring. Okay? Thanks. Stay tuned.